Hi, I'm Hotsy Malone with Vagabond Souls. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my parents, who are showbiz people, because that might explain why I have such a love for theatrics and for traveling and living out of a suitcase, which is technically what we'll be doing, although I'll be living with a little tiny closet. So my dad, Robert Strong, was a big band leader back in the radio days. He had they called them orchestras back then. They were big bands. And so it was Bob Strong and his orchestra. And he was managed by MCA, and he was on Hit Records, HITT, which was the big 78 records. Although some other companies later on did some compilations of his work and put out albums at that point too. So my dad started out in college as a violinist, and then he went on to do all the woodwind instruments. He was best known for clarinet and oboe and also saxophone. He composed quite a few pieces, even wrote and composed, and he traveled around. As you can see in some of the pictures, there's one picture that I'm particularly proud of, and it's my dad. I believe it's the Copacabana, but don't hold me to that. But it's my dad in a booth with Les Brown, who was also a very well-known band leader. Some floozy that's next to him. I'm sorry, that this was pre my mom, and she probably was a vocalist with one of the bands. And Nat King Cole is in the booth with him, and they're all chatting and having drinks. And I actually, at one point when I worked for a concert promoter, we did a show with Natalie Cole, and I had the opportunity to tell her about the picture that I had with my dad and her dad sitting in this booth in this what I thought was the Copacabana. So also my dad was musical director for Red Skelton. And if you're young, you're not going to have a clue who he is, but if you're older, you'll know that he had a variety show every week. And one of his famous characters that he did was a clown, and it's probably the only clown that I like, that I'm not scared of. But Red Skelton and his family, they would send my dad Christmas cards every year, and they kept in touch. I actually have some scripts back from the radio show, and so that's pretty special. My dad was friends with Rudy Vallee, who was an actor and a singer, and he was most famous for doing a lot of his songs with a megaphone, like, you know, having that megaphone sound. So that's a lot of the pictures with my dad. Rudy Vallee, Red Skelton, there's one of his headshots. And then that leads us to my mom. My mom was, in her younger years, a model. There's a modeling shot down here that she did. She was also a rockette. And then in her later years, she skated with Sonja Henie. Sonja Henie was a Norwegian ice skater who was a 3-time Olympian, and actually put together a show that would be very similar to Ice Capades of today. So my mom skated with her for years, and that's where she met my dad. They were in the same town and they met, and so they started a just fabulous letter writing, which people did back in that day. And I've read some of the letters, and they were so sweet and so tender. And they decided to get married, and my dad quit the road and decided he was going to run his father's feed and grain company in Dodge City, Kansas. My dad was always a musician and had no clue how to run a feed and grain company. So he decided to sell the company, which he did, and he was offered an opportunity to go into business with a gentleman who had a music store in Terre Haute, Indiana. And so at the tender young age of 1, I was whisked away to Terre Haute, Indiana. My mom then became very involved in social activities. She did a lot of charity events and that sort of thing. My dad started this department within the music store where he would go and service all the high school bands their sheet music for the year. And so he left on Monday mornings and would take off on a 2-state area servicing all these schools all week. And then he would come back on Friday and he would come home and then go out that evening and play with some friends of his who had a big band. So Saturday morning he would take me to dance school, and I would be at this dancing school from early in the morning until about 5:30 or 6 when he would come back and pick me up. So with my parents being even off the road but still involved in some activities of entertainment, I, of course, was whisked away to voice and movement classes at the tender age of 3. I started dancing at 3. I ended up going to dance school for 13 years. I thought I was going to be a Broadway star, so, the dancing came in very handy. But, so that's basically my mom. There's some pictures here. There's Sonia Henney on one side. There's also Joan Crawford, who she met at some point in her travels and her journeys. Later on, she put together a modeling school in Terre Haute, Indiana. And there's a picture from the fabulous Indiana Theater, which was one of those grand, just incredibly beautiful theaters that a lot have gone by the wayside, but the Indiana Theater is still there, and that's where we would have our modeling show. So I, of course, modeled with her. She had classes that she would do for, there's a term for it, and I'm not sure what it is, but like eloquence, so like becoming the proper lady, where you learned how to walk and stand up straight. Obviously, I didn't learn that part very well. So also one of the photos at the bottom, here's the family. There's, of course, me as a little tiny baby. And there's my brother, Warren Christner. He had a different father, but my dad pretty much raised him. And my brother Warren was 11 years older than me, so there wasn't a lot of playing when I was young with him, although he did pay attention to me. But as we got older, there was a lot of me stealing his jeans and stuff like that. He was in high school, I was in like grade school. So unfortunately he passed away in 2020, and so there's the family, me, Warren, my mom, and my dad. But anyway, so there's no wonder why I've got this crazy bug to jump in a 35-foot camper and travel around the U.S. The whole gypsy life and everything, like the circus that I would have joined had I been able to, it's just part of who I am. I love traveling. I love going into a new city each day or stay for a little while and discover all the great things about it. But so that will give you an idea of where that gypsy blood came from, is my parents. Oh, their name was Bob Strong and Ruth Strong. So bye for now.